On my journey through the top 100 lowest rated movies on IMDB, now we're on to number 82, Mac and Me. Or as fans of Conan may know it, that movie with that clip Paul Rudd always plays.
So they actually let us show a clip of it. So.
Let's take a look at this clip from the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Disclaimer, I had sorta seen this before, because they made an episode of the new Mystery Science Theater about it. Even though it was already infamous and had a cult following. I mean, yes, the original did movies like Manos, The Hands of Fate, but they were obscure at the time and nobody knew about them until they appeared on the show. It's no fun when we know what we're getting into. Why would somebody want to watch somebody making fun of Mac and Me now? And so, as it's recently become tradition for me to review a comparable movie alongside of these, I chose the one that this movie infamously rips off. A personal favorite of mine. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. But that isn't streaming anywhere without me having to pay extra for it. But that's okay because I got physical media. Yep, I have the DVD from when I was a kid, after the release of the 2002 20th Anniversary Remastered Edition, the one that Spielberg doesn't acknowledge anymore, the one that replaced all the guns with walkie-talkies. No, they weren't cutting out violence for kids, the agents aren't even shooting at them, just having them on screen is enough to be censored out, what the hell. Well, you work with what you got. Alright, here we go, time to watch one of the greatest movies ever, once again. Okay, I don't know if this disc is too old or whatever, but it won't play. Looks like this video is just Mac and Me. This one's streaming for free on good old Tubi, so I'm basically getting none of the pleasure of this video and all of the pain. I'm thinking most of you have already seen E.T., so you basically know anything I can say about it. Like I said, it's a personal favorite of mine. If I actually talked about it in depth, this would get 5 stars. It was also a phenomenon whose influence and popularity can still be seen today. When you have a director who made Jaws, another all-time great movie that made history by inventing the modern blockbuster as we know it, and people still consider this to be his magnum opus, you know it's something. But of course, every good thing has its cheap knockoff. Okay, I already have an intermission planned out, and I like the juxtaposition of it, and I have nowhere else to put it, so...
The connection has been made. Universal Pictures presents Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Hamburger University with Ronald McDonald.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Ronald.
Today's subject, the Hamburglar. The Hamburglar is very clever and very sneaky.
The Hamburglar!
And he loves taking McDonald's hamburgers. So, what should you yell when you see it?
Help Ronald, sailor!
That's right.
Uh-oh.
Hamburglar.
It's a good time for the train.
You've got a lot to learn.
Don't take burgers, Rubble Rubble.
McDonald's.
Mac and Me was the brainchild of a producer whose name I won't say out loud to spare him the shame, even though he probably deserves it more than anyone else whose movies were on the show. Seriously, the story of this movie's conception is a cynical one. Okay, so he had previously worked on an advertising campaign for McDonald's and had an association with Ronald McDonald House Charities. He was quoted as saying that Ronald McDonald was even more well-known than Santa Claus, and E.T. was not that far behind. So why not combine the two? He said he wanted to make sure that the next generation had its own E.T. I mean, next generation? Damn, the 80s weren't even over yet. But you know people, 6 years ago, that's like ancient history. And he wanted to use the McDonald's name in the movie, so he pitched it to McDonald's as a cross-promotional event, and had part of the proceeds go to Ronald McDonald House Charities. I'm guessing they didn't get as much as they hoped. He hired the director after he was recommended by James Brolin, who worked with him on a movie called High Risk. When the director asked what the script would be, the producer said, "We don't have a script. I don't like the script. You have to write the script. You're gonna have to write it quickly, so prep the movie and write the script on the weekends." People believe that McDonald's actually funded this movie. Well, they did not. It instead received funding by Golden State Foods, a distributor closely associated with McDonald's. Jeez. The producer noted that he was the first to use McDonald's to promote films. Probably because of this deal, Disney made another deal that McDonald's would have to promote all of their movies. A deal which lasted up until 2006 when both parties were put under pressure to quit promoting junk food to children so much. Anyway, the director said that because of Disney, McDonald's no longer cared about this movie in particular but still had to promote it. You know, I've tried to be fairly positive toward all the movies that I talked about on this list. Everything I've seen up to this point I was able to see at least one positive thing about it. Batman and Robin had some cool scenes, Superman 4 had a good message, even Stan Helsing didn't overdo the references. This one I can barely think of anything positive to say. The best thing I could say is that at some point about half an hour in, it stopped being painful to watch and really just left me numb to everything. So, anyway, as you may have guessed, it's about a kid who befriends an alien who just wants to go back to his family and the government wants to keep him for evil government reasons. Something about that summary sounds familiar. They try to differentiate it from E.T. by actually showing the alien's family and making the aliens have powers. Tell me, what was the most famous shot of E.T. again? Either way, none of those changes work. Also, the alien looks really stupid. He and his family constantly have their mouths open in some sort of O face for the whole movie and it makes him look like an idiot. He just looks to be stupidly surprised by everything and that's the only emotion he can show. He's an unconvincing puppet and the parents are clearly people in suits. There are a few moments near the beginning where the movie tries to give Mac's body some sort of cartoony physics, but it never persuades you that this is the same Mac. There's also a part where they disguise him as a teddy bear and it's either a child or a little person in the suit. He moves and dances around so smoothly that you can definitely tell it's not the same Mac. Okay, very mild positive here. For how badly the producer looks right now, except for the whole charity thing, he did do one good thing for this movie. For the main character who's in a wheelchair, he actually insisted on using an actor who was actually disabled. And that's a pretty good gesture. He had apparently never acted before. That doesn't sound too promising until you actually watch the movie and realize that nobody in this movie could act. And honestly, when I first saw the Mystery Science Theater episode, from what I heard about the movie before and even now hearing about the backstory, I was kind of surprised at how little McDonald's product placement there actually is. Yes, the alien's named Mac, but that may or may not be a coincidence. Here, Mac stands for Mysterious Alien Creature. Wow, what an original way to name an extraterrestrial. Otherwise it's mostly just one scene, but then again, it's a big one. I think the best way to introduce this is with a quote from the Wikipedia page. Despite McDonald specifying that they did not want Ronald McDonald to appear in the film, he nonetheless appeared in the scene set in the McDonald's restaurant which featured an extended dance sequence. So yes, some kid is having a birthday party at a McDonald's. Not even one with a play place or anything, just a regular fast food place that probably smells of grease. But for some reason it's full of energy and activity. Ronald McDonald's there and there's even some random people dancing outside the building. Oh, and then the people inside randomly break into an impromptu, heavily choreographed dance routine. I wasn't around for the 80s, but between this movie and the frat party in Teen Wolf 2, I'm just gonna guess that every party back then was an elaborate dance sequence. Nobody actually enjoyed themselves. That's how you ruin the dance for everyone. Still, Coke surprisingly gets a much bigger deal because it turns out it's the only thing that the aliens can drink because, completely by coincidence, it resembles what they drink on their planet. When they find Mac's family dying, they are resurrected with Coke. So when you see somebody dying, just give them a Coke and leave them, they'll be fine. I mean, Coke gives me the energy when I can't get up on my own. Oh wait, we're talking about Coca-Cola? Also, their mouths are shaped so that they have to drink everything. But that doesn't stop some idiot kid from saying, "I wonder if he likes Skittles," and pouring a handful down Mac's fucking throat. But since he didn't choke and die, I guess that's an endorsement. Oh, and there's some actually subtle product placement for Sears. Critics noted this because apparently they distributed McKids, a children's clothing line made by McDonald's. Wait, what? A McDonald's clothing line? Why would anyone want to wear that? I mean, I could understand wearing a shirt with McDonald's on it, but wearing a shirt with their clothing line on it? People be talking about Gucci and Versace when we all know the real prestige goes to those who wear McDonald's. Anyway, tangent. There's a scene early on when the older brother is trying on his sunglasses in his room and sees Mac in the doorframe. He takes them off and Mac is hidden. He puts them back on again and Mac's there again. I looked up when They Live came out and it was the same year as this. Upon further inspection, it came out a few months after. So let it be known that John Carpenter's cult classic was just ripping off Mac and Me.
All the sex and violence on the screen has gone too far for me. I'm fed up with it. Filmmakers like George Romero and John Carpenter have to show some restraint.
Speaking of violence, there is apparently a scene of the kid in the wheelchair being gunned the fuck down by a stray bullet. While it appears in the Japanese VHS release, it's cut out from all other versions of this movie after test screenings didn't like it. I'm guessing that may have been the only thing from that test screening that they listened to. He dies off screen so that Mac can bring him back to life, but it's hard to tell what happened. There's a gunfight and then the grocery store explodes for some reason. Maybe they explained that, but I just missed it because I didn't give a shit. And it really just looks like he died from being close to the explosion. The way it's shot, there's no way of telling that there was a bullet. I'll admit the ending is different. Instead of trying to find a way back to their home planet, the aliens just decide to stay here, as shown through a scene where they become US citizens wearing actual human clothes. Just this real ending to it all. Oh, and Mac's wearing a kid's shirt in this scene because of course he is. And it ends with a text promising that Mac and his family will be back. They weren't. A major disappointment. I was curious to see what movie they'd rip off next. Seriously, now that their ET story is over, it would have been interesting to see the direction they would have taken after that. At least I'm more curious than I was at what comes after Batman and Robin. Well, that movie sucked. Now I have a weird craving to get a Big Mac and a Coke. Maybe pick up some of those fancy McDonald's clothes from Sears. Despite everything wrong with it, this has achieved a cult following among fans of bad movies. I can't fully join this camp because, well, most good bad movies have a sort of passion behind them. I doubt anybody involved viewed this as anything other than a 90-minute commercial. Actually, the McDonald's scene was pretty fun, though. But anyway, the producer said that a sequel was still possible because its video sales have made the original profitable for Orion Pictures. He also said that he still believes the character of Mac would still resonate with today's younger viewers. Dude, the audience for a sequel isn't going to be children. Recently, I told you how much I hated the adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, but I gave that a little slack because I knew that kids would probably like it. This one, apparently Paul Rudd said he loved this movie because he grew up with it. If I saw this as a kid, I'd probably think it was okay, but I'd much rather watch E.T. Shark Boy and Lava Girl had a lot of imagination behind it. It encouraged children to use their imagination. Mac and Me has no imagination, not one original idea, and the only thing it tells children is to buy more junk food. It's that kind of cynicism that truly gets at my first 0-star rating. Yes, I did just go from a 5-star movie to a 0-star movie. E.T. was an 80s icon, and this one represents the uglier aspects of the decade. Honestly, if they had just made a Ronald McDonald movie, that would be more interesting, and probably make them slightly more money. This video has been sponsored by Burger King. We only made this video because we're haters. Buy more Whoppers, you dumb piece of shit. Also join my Patreon.